Episode 3 of The Last of Us Season 2 is now streaming. It just premiered earlier tonight, and I'm here to talk to you guys about it. And there are going to be some spoilers in this video. You have been warned. There are things I'd like to discuss. So without further ado, let's get into it. Obviously, last week was a very big episode, and it was a shocking one for a lot of people. It's been very interesting over the last week, seeing a lot of reactions to it from people who've never played the game, just reacting to the fact that Joel gets killed by Abby. Now, if you've played the game, you knew that was coming, so it just was like a matter of time at that point. But to just see people reacting to it for the first time, the sense of heartbreak that is, just clouding over everything, makes perfect sense. And so now you're going into an episode where you're dealing with the aftermath of that, as well as everything that happened in Jackson, which looks like the aftermath of a war zone when this episode opens, and you see bodies of infected and people just strewn across the streets. It looks like a massacre. And the morgue, Tommy enters as this girl is cleaning up Joel's body, and he's like, I'll take it from here. And it's a really emotional moment because, of course, he starts crying. His brother's body is the one that he's cleaning up, but it's something that he says also in that moment, which is, give Sarah my love. I always felt really bad for Tommy in all of this because he lost his brother. Before that, he lost his niece. He's got Maria and his kid now, so that's nice. But at the same time, it's just, this man has known some pain, and it's just a heartbreaking moment. And then you get to the hospital where Ellie is on a stretcher, and she sees this vision when she gets up of Abby killing Joel, and she starts screaming. It's this blood churning sound that comes out of her. And I thought it was a really good way to use the trauma that is something that is in the game. Because in the game, she has a PTSD moment where she sees Joel in that basement of the lodge as she's descending down it. But over here, because the location has changed a little bit, it's happening in like the main area of the lodge, and it's a little more brightly lit compared to how it was in the game. So she's seeing that, and it just really hits her. But I thought they handled that in a soul-crushing way, because those screams really do, get through to you. And then you get to 3 months later. Jackson is being rebuilt. Tommy is helping out with that, as well as Jesse. Ellie is being done with her physical and psych evals at the hospital. Gail comes in and checks on her just to see if she's doing okay. And Ellie's like, yeah, I'm doing great. Awesome. Whatever, let's go. And she's ready to get out. But you can kind of tell she's suppressing something. And there's something that she's not quite making apparent. Because she eventually does go over to Joel's house, and as she's going around just seeing everything over there, untouched as it's been ever since he's been gone, she eventually goes over to his bedroom and she finds a small box over there with his watch and his revolver. So it's just a couple of his personal belongings. And then she turns around and she sees his jacket in the closet. And this leads to a moment which is actually one of my, the saddest moments in the game for me too, is when you're going around the house and she sees the jacket, she walks over to it, she grabs the sleeve, and she's she buries her head in it for a second, quietly, crying into it briefly. The smell of it, of Joel also just there, this is the last of him. And it's in the show that it's done really, really effectively. Again, a great moment here from Bella Ramsey, really capturing the raw emotion of it. And then Dina's downstairs, hey, Ellie, I have to tell you something. Now, this is obviously a dynamic change because Dina was there with Joel. In the game, Tommy's there. But now Dina is the one who's going to tell Ellie about the WLF, the Washington Liberation Front, as well as going after them. Ellie is pissed at first because she's like, you've wasted time. We could be after them right now. And she's like, listen, this town was nothing but wreckage and funerals for weeks. There was nothing happening. You were not going on any missions. Nobody was going on any missions. And also, I thought maybe we should let them get there. Maybe we'll get them on their turf when they least expect it. It'll make an interesting parallel in that sense, right? I mean, they came to our turf and they killed Joel. We go to their turf and we're going to kill them. Sounds like a good idea. Here, have a cookie. And it's something to basically get the ball rolling on Ellie's revenge path as it's going to take on. But then eventually the town of Jackson is also debating whether or not to send anyone to go after Joel. Because as much as he was a pillar of the community, this town currently is vulnerable. It's been through something awful. And so people are needed over here, which also is something that Tommy says in the game about, like, to have the guys that we would need to do this smart, you will be leaving Jackson vulnerable. And that's something that he brings up to Ellie as well. And there's a council meeting, and it seems like the votes are not really going in that favor. But Ellie and Dina are steadfast. They want to get going. So they get on Shimmer, then they sneak out in the middle of the night, thanks to Seth, who gets a little more redemption arc in this compared to the game. Because in the game, the last time you see him is when he hands over the steak sandwiches, like it was in episode 2. And it's like, I'm trying to say I'm sorry. And then Ellie's like, yeah, sure. But in this case, he actually tries to make more of an effort. So he's like, no, I know the way out, and by the way, here's a better rifle, exchange with me. So you take this, you use this. And then eventually Ellie and Dina head out towards Seattle. Something that also happened in the middle of this episode is you get your first look at the Seraphites. And immediately when you see them, because, the one of them is walking and suddenly starts whistling. And immediately it takes you back. Like, if you played the game, immediately you're like, oh, crap. Like, I mean, the way that they appear in the game is an arrow comes at Ellie and it hits her in the shoulder. And then you hear the whistling as they're like, oh, I think we've got someone. It's a very terrifying moment. But here you just see them walking along. They're heading over somewhere. And then there's someone that seems to be coming for them, so they hide. And eventually, when Ellie and Dina are making their way to Seattle, they eventually find the bodies of all of these Seraphites just lying there. And Dina throws up. That's something that might come up later. Wonder what that's about. But I also like that they kind of give you a tease into the bigger relationship with Ellie and Dina, because you get a reworked version of that conversation which they have about, rating the kiss that they had on New Year's Eve. And so it's like, what would you grade it? And Ellie's like, I'll give it a 6, which is not the way it goes in the game. Dina's the one who's like, I'll give it a 6, and it's like, a 6? But in this case, it's Dina who's like, a 6? Really? Okay. But it kind of leaves you on that, there might be a bigger thing over there. They sort of tease it. You don't get a kiss again, but they're teasing that relationship building too. But it also kind of leaves on that hook as Ellie and Dina arrive in Seattle that there might be a bigger threat to deal with when it comes to the WLF. How big is the Washington Liberation Front? And then you get a final bit where you see an entire platoon of soldiers with, vehicles just going down the street, armored up. And immediately you're getting the sense that Ellie and Dina have signed up for something way bigger than they bargained for. And that's where the episode ends. So, all in all, a very solid episode. Yes, a lot reworked and changed from the games. Obviously, acknowledging the role of Jackson and all of this, giving a little more depth to all that. And I'm curious to see how they'll let the rest of it play out. As I've already mentioned in previous videos, I don't need a one-to-one adaptation to the game. So I like what they're doing with the story over here and some of the choices that they're making. I am curious to see how some of the more important choices as the season goes on will be played out, especially when it comes to Ellie becoming much darker as a character. So I'm excited to see that. Also, Ellie being at Joel's grave right before they head out for Seattle. Yep, that was an emotional beat. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. And remember, when you're lost in the darkness,